Exactly.
New concerns that Al-Qaeda is recruiting children as terrorists after this video showed up on YouTube. Watch here now. So we are told that that young boy is 4 years old. Experts say it's nothing they haven't seen already. John Bolton's the former U.S. ambassador to the UN, senior fellow, American Enterprise Institute, Fox News contributor. Long title, Mr. Ambassador. Good morning to you. I mean, he's 4 years old. Apparently was in Syria. The kid comes from Uzbekistan, if you do the Arabic translation, as we did a bit earlier today. I don't know. What do you think about this?
Well, it's in the West, we would describe this as immoral, cynical, bloodthirsty, ruthless. But for the radicals, the terrorists, the end justifies the means. And it's not the first time they've used children as suicide bombers, as human shields to protect against attacks by military units. So I think it is a growing threat because they will simply use any means they can to achieve their objectives in Syria or elsewhere.
You could also make a strong case that a guy like Assad is using kids as human shields. I mean, they will use schools to protect soldiers, won't they?
Yes, absolutely. They've put munitions in schools. We know from Hezbollah tactics in Lebanon next door, they'll fire mortars at Israel from somebody's house, inviting retaliation, obviously, but leaving the house before the retaliation can take place. This sort of behavior is fundamentally contrary to our values, but when you're in it for their objectives, as I say, they believe the end justifies the means.
And it's clear exploitation. I mean, and you've seen that not just in the conflict in Syria. We saw it in Iraq. We saw it in some cases in Afghanistan. I mean, in some ways, Mr. Ambassador, this story is as old as time.
Right, but it has a particular edge to it now, given, as you said, this child may have been from Uzbekistan, home of the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, so they may be engaged in human trafficking as well as using children for terrorist activities. It's a pretty sordid story.
One more point on this. Also on the tape, the audio, they talk about the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Now, you've talked many times about this border between those two countries right now with the civil war in Syria for 2+ years, how unguarded it is. And now you've got the flag of Al-Qaeda flying over Fallujah and Ramadi. Is this already becoming a safe haven for these foreign terrorists to gather yet again?
Well, I think it is. I think it's out of control of the Iraqi government in Baghdad, and certainly it's out of control of the Assad regime in Syria. And the Sunni extremists on both sides clearly cooperating together. Interesting, today the leadership of Al-Qaeda expelled the ISIS, I guess too extreme even for them. But the point is, this is a lawless region now, and that kind of anarchy is a perfect breeding ground for terrorists, place for training camps and other locations that ultimately we will see the consequences of through terrorist attacks in the West.
Too extreme for Al-Qaeda, huh? That says something.
That tells you something. Right.
Thank you, John Bolton, Mr. Ambassador in Washington. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.